The Department of Homeland Security and the FBI are facing scrutiny for failing to take warnings about violence seriously before the January 6 riots on Capitol Hill. Brigida Santos joins me now to talk about the details of all that. Brigida, what did law enforcement agencies know before the siege? It seemed like it was overwhelming. All they had to do was look on social media to see what was coming their way. What's your take?
Yeah, back in December, the New York Police Department actually warned the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security that violence was very likely to occur on January 6th as Congress met to certify the results of the presidential election. And one day before the siege, an FBI office in Virginia actually issued an internal warning that extremists were traveling to Washington to commit violence. FBI personnel there reportedly even identified threats to Congress and said people were sharing maps of the Capitol's tunnel system. But despite receiving that raw intelligence, no formal threat assessment was issued to local law enforcement officials to help them prepare for the violence. And of course, as a result, the world watched as pro-Trump protesters stormed the Capitol in an attempt to stop the election from being certified. If law enforcement had heeded their own warnings, 5 people who died that day might still be alive, 2 suicides after the fact may have been prevented, and the authorities would not still be looking for suspects who committed a variety of crimes, including placing explosives at the offices of the Republican and Democratic National Committees. This was a stunning security failure.
Amazing. These are the folks that are protecting our country from terrorism, by the way. If law enforcement knew threats existed, I mean, why didn't they prepare? If you really think about it, there is no rationale. I've read their talking points. It's just nonsense. There's no rationale here. What is your take?
No, some FBI officials, they've told reporters that producing a formal threat assessment might have infringed on the free speech rights of demonstrators. But we know that's not really a concern because over the summer, the FBI and DHS took the opposite approach when issuing full intelligence bulletins before the Black Lives Matter protests in Washington. Now, it's unclear whether the backlash from those events got them to change their tune here, but they also weren't prepared, basically due to problems within the bureaucracy. Now, since the siege, law enforcement agencies have been pointing fingers at each other, and while real vulnerabilities have been exposed in the chain of command, there are bigger conversations taking place behind the scenes now about the importance of impartiality in assessing threats. They basically just didn't think these people were going to actually be a threat.
Well, what's most so bothersome, this takes me back to 9/11. When we know that there's this interagency fight, this childish, idiotic stupidity that exists between one agency like the FBI and another agency like the CIA, where they want to own the issue. And so they allowed, in many ways, 9/11 to take place. And this just pops, this first thing that comes to my mind as I read the story. Racism is a problem in America, including law enforcement. And I'm wondering, how common is the problem in policing? Because there are critics out there that are saying part of the problem is racism, because had this been a bunch of, African Americans coming here, we'd had a big old fat problem. What's your take?
Yeah, back in 2006, the FBI outlined the threat of white nationalists infiltrating police departments to disrupt investigations into fellow members and to recruit other supremacists. And at one point here in Los Angeles, there's a perfect example. Members of a local sheriff's office actually formed a neo-Nazi gang and terrorized Black and Latino communities. A 2015 counterterrorism policy guide later outlined how the FBI quietly investigates law enforcement's white supremacy problem. Now, investigations have exposed individual officers and, in some cases, entire agencies with ties to hate groups, yet this problem persists today. Now, since 2001, more than 250 Black officers have sued the Capitol Police Department over racial discrimination. Current and former Black officers there say they're not surprised that rioters wearing or carrying racist symbols burst into the Capitol so easily. Several Capitol PD officers have even been suspended for possible complicity with rioters. One of those rioters was seen carrying a Confederate flag, and officers were just letting them in.
Well, what we're really going to see, I think it's bigger than local police. I think it's important. It's much bigger than local police. It's the top management of the CIA, top management of the FBI, top management of Homeland Security. that in this situation at least, see, I had nothing to do with it because it's domestic, but in a setting where you have to get them to cooperate, I'm still not very optimistic. Thank you for joining me, okay?
Thanks, Mike.
Joe Biden was given a great opportunity to move the country forward, but his cabinet picks look more like the same. You know, right top of mind, Blinken.
Right.
How scary is Blinken? You pick it up from there. We've talked about this a lot.
Blinken comes from the West Exec Advisors.
Explain what that is.
Well, they work with the defense industry, and they brag on their website, actually talking about the fact that, hey, we've got this direct line, basically, into the White House at all times.
To the Situation Room.
Yeah, to the Situation
They
Room.
literally are bragging, we're just right down the street from the Situation Room. Now, Blinken, all the folks that surround this whole deal are all his buds.
Yeah.
They were the same war hawks when it came to Syria. In a second, they would love to start a Cold War with Russia. Who knows what they're thinking about China, but I can tell you this. They're war hawks. Now, that's just Blinken. Let's go to Janet Yellen.
Yeah, I mean, Yellen has the same problem Hillary Clinton had, taking millions of dollars to give these closed-door Wall Street speeches. Just in the last 2 years, I think, more than $7 million in 2 years?
$7.2 million.
And she's going to run the Fed?
And they asked her when all this was going on, Janet, can't you share with the American public what you're sharing with these folks? They're smoking cigars in oak rooms, drinking scotch. Can't you share with us what you're sharing with them? And absolutely not. I have a right to say what I want to say behind closed doors. We know what she's saying, but she's the person right now.
Right, and of course you have the hardcore establishment Democrat super fans on social media who anytime, and Anna Kasparian pointed this out from TYT in an op-ed, she says anytime, you point out these flaws with somebody like Janet Yellen, they immediately try to shut you down as, oh, well, it's because you don't like women.
Yeah, misogynist.
We can have legitimate concerns about somebody regardless of their gender. They can still be a bad person even if they're a woman.
Here's the biggest obstacle in making this administration do what they need to do to shake up this awful 4 years we've been through. Here it is. The biggest obstacle is tribalism. It's the goofy cat out there that says, I'm a Democrat and everything Democrat is important. I'm just going to stand behind them whatever they do. It is so dangerous because the American public is waiting for Biden to look different than Obama, to look different than Hillary Clinton. But everybody he's appointing is just part of Hillary Clinton's gaggle of flying monkeys. That's the problem here. And if they would just say, okay, we're going to listen to AOC. We're going to listen to some of those folks on the left, progressive on the left, that are telling us, don't do this again. Yeah. We missed a bullet last time. Don't do it again.
Right. And of course they don't listen because they go back to the same people they know. The same people who run the powerful organizations and the think tanks are the same ones who were there, 14 or 12 years ago. They're going to be there 4 years from now as well, probably advising Kamala on how to run her campaign. I mean, it's the same people every time, and then we sit back and wonder, well, why doesn't anything change?
And Blinken,
because it's the same people.
And Blinken is the war hawk, has been involved in stirring up more wars all over this globe than we can count. And Biden said, yeah, that's our guy.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me. Okay.
Thank you.